So I actually found a letter on one of these doors. It's basically an eviction notice. It says this letter is to inform you that the city of blank taken possession of this condominium complex, including your unit. The environmental court issued a court order approving the sale of the entire complex to the city.
Hey, I'm back here with Christian.
Hello everybody.
Christian, I've been playing you this little bit of video. This is called Dark Exploration Films. He went out with Big Banks. And yesterday, Big Banks was the video I made of the empty houses. And this is a person that was with him. And he's just said that on the door, on one of the houses, it was to, to get them out. It was a court order.
Evacuation order.
Yeah, so it's these houses. These ones. So what do you make of that?
Well, they were obviously evacuated for a reason, or thrown out the area. I mean, we first believed that it was down to water poisoning. Or,
but it does say environmental people have done the court order. But what he says is the town is buying the houses.
Yeah, to me it sounds more like an eviction notice that's taking place, and either perhaps they were development for something else.
Well, another company has taken over and was supposed to redevelop it, but they haven't.
No, that got cancelled as well. So it's sinister that they were probably told something of that effect, and then the land got sold on and they were evicted. You know, that's more or less what he says, isn't it?
But if you've bought the house, how can you be evicted when you've bought it? So what this would have to be is, this would have to be, well, what do we call them? Council. No, it would have to be... Well, where they live would be the owners of this or something. If you've bought the house, they can't just evict you like that, can they?
No, they can't, because in recent times they've come up with this law.
Like in Spain?
It's called eminent domain, and I don't know exactly what it entails, but it's like the government can just take whatever you own. One of my friends, I've known for about 5 years, she owns a bit of land, and she was told that some of her land was going to get taken by eminent domain for sustainable development. And you think, okay, you know, and to me it doesn't make any sense. I mean, at the end of the day, if you own the land, you own the land.
Do you know what else is really weird about this housing estate? So it could be older. Some of the trees are quite big. You know, right in front of their houses. He stands, in his video, which you can watch there, it's called Toxic Evacuation Abandoned Neighbourhood with 300 Houses. And it's called Dark Exploration Films. He stands by a tree and he says, look at the size of everything. Look at me on the tree. Look how big these trees are. So why would they build a housing estate in the trees? The trees would have to have been smaller, and then they've not... This has been empty for... It can't be 2017. It's got to be longer.
I never thought about that, you know. When you consider that some of the trees are right next to the houses, I mean, right next to them. Yeah, you're right, because they don't build houses right next to trees, do they? They make sure the area's clear first.
And all these houses, but the houses don't look that old.
No, I mean, to me they look, I don't know, 10, 15 years old, 20 at
But the trees are much bigger. Like, one of the trees, it's got to be 200 years old or something.
This tree is absolutely enormous. It's been a while since I've seen a tree this big. But this tree has probably been here since this whole property's been here. Probably before the homes. And here it sits, still surviving. I mean, look at me compared to the trunk. I would need like 10 of me just to wrap around the trunk. Fortunately, the fate of this neighborhood is demolition.
You know, I never give that much thought.
I mean, we've got a tree here now, and you have to, I mean, obviously it's his video, and I've taken that little bit out, and I don't want strikes, but they explain it better. It's through them I've realised things. But these trees are big. Some of the trees are much bigger than this, and they're all around the houses like this. You would not build houses with great big trees there.
No, you're right. I mean,
so what's happened there then?
That's critical thinking on a higher level, because when you look at these houses, they are more or less covered by the trees. You know, most of them aren't they? You know, and it's beggars belief that if they were got evacuated.
Even these ones here, right? They're enormous. They're much bigger than the houses. If the housing estate had not been there that long, These trees would not have been as big, but these are all great big. It's almost as if the houses are 100 years older than they're saying, but they don't look that old, and they've got modern equipment in them and modern kitchens. So I don't know, and they're not 1960s. They look about 10, 20 years ago, kind of.
I don't know, because some houses that look like that were built in the 1920s. So I mean, but yeah, you got a good point there.
But these are all wooden houses.
Yeah, and you don't build. You don't. It's like no, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, I've come across.
Right there, they're walking there. All these trees are big. Like if they went in 2017, that's only a few years ago. These trees wouldn't have been much smaller, but these are big trees.
Yeah, I think on one of Martin's videos, I made that same comment some years back, that you can clearly see that the tree is like 300-400 years old, right? But yet they said this building was built in such a date. But you think, well, they don't build houses right next to a tree.
There's one there. Look, I can't. It's just stopped here because what it is I didn't really want to use much of his video, but I just wanted to show it was the same houses as the other video. But there's a tree there. That's quite a big tree.
Yeah.
Why are the trees so big?
It's baffling, isn't it?
They're all round the houses. I mean, there's another one there. It's at least half as big as the house again above the house.
Yeah, you're right. The trees would have had to be smaller, a lot smaller.
And what they say is this place, well, a couple of the gardens look like they've been mowed, but most of it is not being looked after at all.
But I'm in agreement with you. I'd say them trees were more than 100 years old.
So why have they built the houses amongst all the trees?
Because it was different when the houses were built. Seriously.
Yes,
just imagine it.
But they all look modern inside.
That's strange, isn't it? It is very strange.
Well, anyway, should we move?
I'm gonna watch it again.
Christian, we're going to move on now because we've got a bit more to do.
So I actually found a letter on one of these doors. It's basically an eviction notice. It says this letter is to inform you that the city of blank has taken possession of this condominium complex, including your unit. The environmental court issued a court order on August blank approving the sale of the entire complex to the city. Crazy to think that one time somebody came home and they saw that letter on their door. And I'm sure for a lot of people they didn't know where to go because home is home, you know? Pretty wild. There isn't a lot here, but what I am finding is really interesting. We're starting to learn a little bit more about this entire complex.
A portion of Alaska actually sits along a very geologically active line that surrounds the Pacific Ocean called the Ring of Fire. It is where the majority of the world's volcanoes are located. However, aside from being volcanic, it is ripe with tectonic activity as well. This line actually goes through the southern part of Alaska, as well as stretching the entire length of the Aleutian Islands. These are the areas in the state where the vast majority of people live. It includes cities such as Anchorage and Juneau.
Getting an injured team member out of the far reaches of this place would be an almost impossible task. So we tread carefully over the half-million-year-old crystal formations. What makes the discovery of this one-of-a-kind geological wonder even more fascinating is that until the year 2000, this entire chamber was completely underwater.
An interesting thing about the mine here is that this cave is temporary. Once the mine is no longer viable, they're going to turn off the pumps, and this whole cavern will flood yet again, just like it was 500,000 years ago, totally lost to human eyes.
This may be my one chance to experience this incredible place.
So right now I'm sitting up on one of the larger crystals, and this is my view. Totally unreal.
Yes, Christian. Well, looking now back at the Ring of Fire, which Everest or China is on, it just seems this is where all the earthquakes, most of the earthquakes are happening, is on that Ring of Fire.
Yeah, and they're not really involving the tectonic plates, are they? But that's the first thing you think of if you're thinking along them lines where the tectonic plates are causing friction, which causes heat, you know, and that's where you'd think all the activity is from. But when you look at the Ring of Fire, it doesn't travel in that same direction.
Well, it does depend which way you look at it, because I know you're not looking at it, but with the star map, so obviously South America is, and that's supposed to be the ring. They've done it back to front on this one, of course. I suppose it's an American that's done it. Their maps are different. But obviously the Ring of Fire starts there, goes all the way through there and goes through to Africa. Don't really see much here, but they do have a lot of activity here. So what happens here, and you know, it just looks like there's a big piece of land missing here and bits missing here then to match. It's like a butterfly with half a wing missing. But anyway, when we get down to their Ring of Fire, I'm not really sure how all this goes, because it's like done. We don't see it this way. We do it from here in England, and they're doing it. Well, anyway, this has been done this way. Ring of Fire. So Australia, look, it's got the star bit around it. There it is. There, star bit. They've done it as a star bit. It goes round Australia.
I mean, part of it does look like a bit of a wing, doesn't it? The way it falls over and comes back in on itself. So yeah, that section of it does look like it.
Also, Greenland's right in the middle. It's like a lung or something.
It's all to do with the map system. If the maps are wrong, you know.
Well, this one might still not be quite right, but it's something more like this than what we've been looking at.
Yeah, I mean, why do they call it the Ring of Fire? And the way that the map produces it, it's nothing like a ring. It's just a squiggly line, if you like. You know.
Yeah, and I also said to you that you could almost say that this one here could be almost in the middle. It's slightly in the bit where there's no land, but we could say that that's the middle. Okay.
Yeah.
But there should be something going off there and something going off there then, and then but this bit's missing.
Yeah, it's like the map's not quite right. That's the way it feels to me.
Oh, why don't you think it's right? I think that's honestly, the Union Jack fits perfectly on that one. It's definitely something like that. But there's land missing, or they're not telling us it's there, but maybe it's just not connected to mainland and they never let us go there. There could be a whole continent. You know, a bit like what Admiral Byrd was talking about, but it's not in the Antarctic, it's up there. Who knows? But anyway, carry on.
It's quite hard to figure out, but yeah, I think it's something along them lines, because we know that the Google Maps have been covered up and spliced and overlaid with other things, so it's a possibility that there is extra land out there that they're not telling us. You know, parts of the left-hand side of Greenland is all covered up, like it's been smudged over, so, you know.
Yeah, I did a map on that. The size that they're showing that Greenland is on their map looks like the 4 rivers. It's the 4 rivers and Greenland put together. And they're covering the original North Pole was in there. So looking at this map, even though I don't really like the Gleason map, and this is not a Gleason map, but the south is in the middle and the north is on the outside. Because what we're saying is north is in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether
and the south is on the, because we're calling that South America. You know, we know that. We're calling that South America, which is Chile and Brazil and everything. We know that that's south. It's on the outside.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking whether Iceland used to be known as Friesland, because Friesland means the same as Iceland, doesn't it? So, and we know how they like to change names.
I'm not sure if it's in quite the right place. It would have been off Iceland. But Anyway, listen, we're going to move on now because we're making this video, and I've even with Amy last night, I felt like, come on, we're on a train and we're chuffing through. Hang on, 1 second. Yeah, I brought up this map here of Google, and I just thought it's really strange that you can see lines in it, and it's like 4 triangles. That's over Russia, and they had to do that to make the globe. But what it is I was looking this up, because that bit when Christian and I were looking at the Himalayas and Everest, it was all a bit bananas. There it is. And so I was trying to find, but you can't go over the globe. The Google ball won't let you go over the globe, so you have to turn it round. So I was thinking maybe somewhere like Mexico. And then I came across this guy who'd been climbing, you know, and he was going to see all these crystals. He's going to explain a little bit in a minute, and I do want Christian to talk in a moment, but basically the crystals used to be in water. They've got pumps going and the water's out. They're mining there, and when they finish, they'll stop the pumps and then the water will come back, so they say. But these crystals are enormous, Christian.
Yeah, part of the old world. I mean, they are pretty massive. I've come across them myself in the past.
I was trying to find, you know, because there's another one. I'm going to stop it there. When we're talking about places that look a little bit like China, so it might be another pole, that place is a bit similar. There's a ridge there. Okay, that goes from Alaska across. So most of it's got water in now, but that could be maybe, you know, I've tried to, with Sirius's work, he had 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom, but I'm not sure now whether the poles are in different place on the place we live. And that could be one there. And the other place I was thinking of, well, was Mexico, because it looks like maybe some big thing. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to, in a second, hear this guy talk, because he went down into these caves. But I'm trying to find the extra pole. Anyway, it's so hot in there, you can only stay in there for minutes. That's crystal. Crystal will do things. There's a place like this in the Isle of Man, full of crystals.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Quartz crystal. I don't think this is quartz crystal. They use it in houses, but it's all these dirty great crystals in the middle of this mountain. What are mountains? What are mountains?
To me, it's like I don't know if we did at one time live in a world of giant trees. I mean, trees do have little bits of diseases. With some of the materials that trees excrete, you know, some of it is crystalline, isn't it?
This one here, he said these had all fallen over, but if you look at that crystal is embedded in that crystal. So how could that have fallen over? It wouldn't be in the crystal, would it? So they've obviously grown like that. Maybe they think some of them have fallen over, but maybe this is just how the mountain is. But anyway, the whole point of going through this is we're going to talk about something a bit later on, which I was telling Christian about when we first started our phone call. But it's quite incredible. I can't get over the size of the crystals.
Well, I mean, it goes back to a time when this world was a different world. I mean, they say that the older trees were silicon-based, which is a totally different composition of what the trees are today. So when you put it together, so, you know, whether all the materials in the ancient world, were they all differently, you know, were these crystals like mushrooms of the ancient world? You know, we do know that there are still mushrooms out there in the world that are pretty big, you know, but obviously the world was changed in our deeper past. So
yeah, so there's a bit here where he's putting this remarkable find in that Chicha, wherever that is in Mexico. It's got giant crystals. Some of them are 12 meters long, but it is an intensely difficult spot to explore with temperatures over 550 degrees Celsius and humidity approaching 100%. And that's because there's magma there. This cave was filled with water, and it's got pumps to take the water out because they're mining there. So that's probably not good for the, you know, it had water in it, obviously for a reason, to keep everything cool. And he goes in there without any cooling on, and then he goes in with it on because he can spend longer in there. I'm just going to play that bit of video, Christian.
Okay.
I did originally want to look out for the fourth or the another pole of the Earth, But I came across that place in Mexico. But then when I went to look up things about mining, I wanted to know whether mining caused earthquakes, and it does. Christian, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, we've been mining this earth for quite some time, but when you go back through history, the mining seems to be a lot more extensive. You know, from what we see today, I know we don't see it much on our television screens, but there are large open mines up today, you know, and they would destabilise the very foundation that we live on, you know, especially fracking.
They're not saying these ones would have caused the biggest ones, but they would say that, wouldn't they? But they do cause earthquakes. I didn't know that. I mean, you know, everybody says that. But there you go and read it on there, and we know the internet's, well, it's on Google, but it is saying, oh, there it goes. This one's quite interesting. It goes, groundwater abstraction, subsurface mining, vegetation removal, chemical explosions, and infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, one of my first thoughts is
What
when we start
cause it?
having earthquakes here. I mean, Britain's not known for earthquakes, but when the fracking
We
started,
were last century. We had tsunamis and earthquakes, but we don't anymore.
no.
Mm. But what it is they're telling us it's a global thing when it's not. It's actually them doing it to us. Like, for instance, that mine I've just shown you with the great big crystals. They used to have water in there, and while they're mining, they've taken the water out. That water would have been a coolant for the magma below. So they'll probably have earthquakes from there.
It would stabilise the actual pressure, wouldn't it? And it stabilise the temperature. So it's actually what they're doing is they're creating an instability while they're mining.
Yeah, it's so hot in there. He can only, you know, he went in there with just his clothes on, and then he went in there with coolants on. He could stay twice as long with the ice packs in. But it's so hot in there, you can only spend a certain amount of time in there. If you stayed in there, you would die. That's what they said. But listen, there are some published examples that introduce earthquakes. These ones happened through people doing it, mining, in 1929. Earthquakes were happening because of mining.
Yep, and everything that we've researched that in some of the places that we've spoken about, there's always been mining involved, and when something goes wrong with it, the people are moved on.
Oh, you don't think this is what might have caused it? They were mining so heavily, they caused all these things to happen, and the star forts to stop working and everything. It was because of all the mining. I mean, half the world's not there.
Yeah, and some places are actually sunk because of the mining. I would have thought, you know, when you look around the world and you see some of the quarried places, they are gigantic. You know, and if you're taking away certain pieces of what we live on, you're going to have weaknesses. You know, this destabilization of the world that we live in. And yet, you're right. You know, they're giving us this global climate change and whatnot, but yet they're changing the climate by changing our planet, our world.
Yeah, they've done it, and they're blaming, oh, you've got to be careful because of global this. They're the ones that are doing it to us. Like you said to me about gas. Well, why have we been doing all this fracking if there's no gas?
Yeah, that one really got me thinking. I'm thinking, you know, you've got activists that were activists because it was destabilising the area that he lived in, and they didn't want their area to be fracked upon. I mean, the saying is that they can come and frack underneath your house if they wanted. I'm thinking, well, if you own the house, you don't want anybody fracking underneath it, you know, because it causes destabilisation.
Or even near it, Christian.
Yeah, or even near it.
I'm doing the fracking bit now. I hadn't really thought about the fact that some of these earthquakes are happening all the time because they're mining still.
Yeah,
they're not mining coal, are they? They're mining other things.
Yeah, I mean, it was only the other week that I found out, because I never thought there was any connection between fracking and mining, and then I'll find out, yes, it's high water pressure mining, and, you know, we're told that they were looking for gas. Well, they've been fracking for such a long time, and we've got no gas. You know, when you put it together...
That's what they're saying, Christian.
Pardon?
Well, that's what they're saying. How do we ever know they're ever telling us the truth?
Yeah. Precisely. And it's...
Oh, Christian, I wish I'd looked this one up. It says, can the government cause earthquakes?
Well, they are, aren't they, by fracking?
Yeah, or allowing these things. But anyway, we're going to move on to the next bit now. We're going to finish in a minute, but we're going on to the next bit now.
We all know Nepal for being the country with the tallest mountains found anywhere on Earth. This is because the country rests at the edge of a huge tectonic plate that is constantly forcing the land higher and higher as two land masses are constantly pushing against each other. On one hand, this means that the mountains are getting taller by the year. On the other hand, it means that this area is very prone to tectonic activity and earthquakes.
So anyway, I hope that, people watching this video, there's some things in here hopefully just to make you think. Because we don't think enough. But supposedly they're saying Everest sits on this tectonic plate. And it's Pakistan and those mountains pushing up, making the other ones rise even taller. So Everest every year gets bigger. And it doesn't fit into Sirius's work again because he has Everest so tall it's like a big finger sticking out. Well, Everest isn't much taller than the rest of them there, but Everest is growing every year. Don't you think that's weird? They've never really explained it like that. No wonder you imagine 100 years ago it wouldn't have looked like this.
That's probably why the pictures are different there, the ones that we've seen in recent
Because that information Sirius had was this is what he said, it's elevation data from Google Maps. It's through those appy keys he got it. It's from Google Maps he got all that. So that's their elevation data that shows that Everest is that high, but it can't be because it's not showing it here in the picture. And then again, this bit I just struggle so much with, Christian. What you're looking at is 20-30 miles all squished in, and then look, the clouds aren't any smaller or bigger or lower or higher. They're still above the mountains and look like, do they? Look, there's the clouds. They're not telling us the truth about something, Christian.
That's no surprise to me.
And then what's this here? That looks just as high as Everest. Going along there almost. Okay, that looks like it's skimming the clouds there. But these clouds, do they look much higher or smaller or whatever they look like? No, they just look normal.
We know the area had some activity a couple of years back when Sichuan was having severe earthquakes, which is more or less in the vicinity. But when you're looking at where Sichuan is, it's more or less centralised, isn't it? And you wouldn't have thought that in that area there's two tectonic plates shoving up against each other. So, because it's pretty central to one plate.
Well, as we've already said and people have explained it to me, is this mountain range here that goes down is, say, 3 miles high. And then these mountains sit on top of those mountains. So it would always be pushing Everest up, wouldn't it, if they're being pushed?
Yeah.
And then that would cause earthquakes and all sorts of things, wouldn't it?
Quite possible.
I'm a bit blown out by Everest because they show it as a ridge, as a complete ridge. They don't even show you the peak of Everest on the Google thing, so you'd never know that peak was even higher than the rest of the ridge. But the other side is a sheer drop down.
From the pictures that we've seen recently, it looks like Everest's got a pin on top of it, doesn't it? Like an aerial pin.
Well, they don't want you flying close to it. But anyway, so the tectonic plates pushing up against, pushing those mountains up, and with that happening all the time, that would change our weather, wouldn't it? It would change things. It changes our ecosystem.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm looking at it from the outside in, and I'm thinking, well, why are the tectonic plates being pushed together? What is forcing them together?
Well, originally, when I thought we were a globe, they explained that the plates on the floor are moving into, say, they're like a conveyor belt into the mountains with the volcanoes, and so we're a live thing. It's always working, and things are work because it just works like that. It rolls in and it helps the volcanoes keep alight.
It's very strange. I mean, from the point that I'm looking at, I'm still trying to figure out what is causing the plates to go into each other. If we do live on a globe and the oceans are outwards and it's lower, you'd think the tectonic plates in that area would be separating rather than coming together.
And also, if they're rising, then there can't be global thingy-bobby with the water, can there? If they're rising, the water would be going down.
Yeah, my point being is the water forcing the tectonic plates together? You know, you wouldn't have thought so, would you? Because when you do your own little experiment, like you do put a little bit of mud plot in a bucket, it spreads outwards. It doesn't go together, it spreads outwards, doesn't it? So.
And also, we've just shown you a mountain in Mexico where they've got those dirty great crystals. So you don't know in the middle of those mountains there's not huge great crystals.
Yeah. Growing, yeah. So that would if it was the case, then if it has got growing crystals, it would force them apart, wouldn't it? It wouldn't push them together. You know, that's always boggled my mind when I first heard about it.
And they're like a set of jagged teeth, these things. You know, like if you're actually looking, if you could, well, they can't show it to you, can they? Because you can't do thousands of miles in pictures. But it's like a row of jagged teeth, those top of those mountains. It's obviously not that thick at the tops. You know, like it's not wide there. It is like just the peak, making these jagged edges.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always baffled me about this tectonic plate theory. I don't know whether it's fact. I mean,
I don't even know what we're looking at right now, Christian, because he's talking about the tectonic plates, and in front of you you've got, like, I don't know what they are, with like a circle around it, and then Everest just behind it.
Yeah, I mean, most people will take their word as fact, but how do you know it's fact? Have they been that low? Have they seen the tectonic plates underneath the Mount Everest? You know, I mean, the way I see it, to me, it's just a theory. Yeah. Okay, they may be able to measure the tectonic plates out in the ocean, where there's a lot of flatness, and we know a lot of the ocean floor is flat. You know, if that's the case, from what they show us on Google Maps, when you look at the oceans, you think, well, they've got to be spreading apart rather than come together.
And how do these people get to take these photographs if you're not allowed to fly anywhere near it?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It really doesn't. And you know, you're not getting the full picture. This is the way I look at it. We're not getting a full picture. Now, if you imagine Europe being forced closer to Canada and that area, you know, and them coming together, that's understandable. That's tectonic plates coming together. But from what they're saying, there's something else to it. You know, I just won't believe that it's like one continent pushing in on itself, unless there's a whole.
Like I said, you're looking at that's like 5 miles you're looking at there. I just don't think you'd be able to get all this in, and so that you're looking at 5, 10. You're looking at about 15 miles across by about 10 miles up, and it's all perfectly in focus in the camera. I don't believe it.
Well, I mean, like you know yourself that they said that the furthest they've ever drilled down to is between 6, 7, around about 7 miles or so, maybe a little bit more than that. And the tectonic plates would actually go down hundreds and hundreds of miles, wouldn't they? So how would they know? How would they know? Unless they've got a scanning equipment that can go.
And even when they did it in Russia, is it flat there? Are they high? Are they low? Are they at sea level?
Exactly. I mean, the lowest point is the ocean. So why don't they build a little substation in the ocean where they can drill underneath? You know, then they'd be drilling a lot deeper into the earth, wouldn't they? You know, if you're dropping down a few miles already, so if they drilled from the bottom of the ocean downwards, they'd be able to drill a lot deeper into the surface of the earth. But they haven't done that, have they? They've done it with oil fields, but they haven't done it for anything else.
It must be really awkward to go up this way, because you would think they'd go up here, because they all come across this ridge to it, because they do. Most of the pictures I've seen, they're coming across this ridge, which is a much longer way up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it the other week, that the Himalayas are already high up, but then you've got Mount Everest, so, you know, you really have to establish what shape this world really is in certain parts.
So basically, the top of that mountain is about 10 miles up from the sea.
Yeah.
But I just can't get that when you look at this, it looks like it's all in front of you. In fact, when you look at it, it looks like there's writing on it. That looks like an S. These look like letters. It always does through Google. They're always putting things in. I can't quite read it. And when you zoom in, it doesn't make it better. But it always looks like there's letters on everything. You're looking at miles and miles of land here, and it looks like it's just in front of you, and it looks all in focus. And I mean, that's got to be like 10 miles away. Look at it. It's all, I mean, it's all in, look at it. It's in focus over there as well. I don't know what they're showing us. I don't know what to believe anymore. Just nothing looks right ever, Christian. Nothing. Not even Everest. I was trying to get George to understand. There's a place, like if we were in, say, Newbury, if I said the mountain is as tall as if you went to Hungerford, that's 10 miles. So that's how high it is. It's hard. You wouldn't be able to see. You'd have to be miles and miles out just to see the mountain.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. If you're like standing on the motorway and it's flat land, right? Pure flat. I mean, evenly flat. Your eyes cannot focus 5 miles away. Yeah, that's what you're saying. But if you're looking at it straight up, you wouldn't be able to see it, would you? So I know what you're saying, that your eyes could focus in on it. It's strange to think that way, but that's how it is. You can't see somebody 5 miles away because your eyes cannot perceive it. We can only see a certain distance.
And something else which we talked about as well, though the Gobi Desert and the other desert, they would have been seas and they would have had water in, and obviously all that water leaving those seas has caused the cascade down China and down the Middle East.
Well, yeah, exactly. They found shark bones, whale bones. They found all sorts that would suggest
that might have been one of the catastrophes that happened when our whole world changed.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at these deserts,
maybe they were heavily mining and causing earthquakes. Maybe the seas on the top of this plateau burst and caused masses of damage there. You imagine these things together, that would have ruined all the starfall. I don't know, you see, like, it could have been more natural things, but they still did it because they were mining and causing earthquakes. And
well, it's like these structures off the coast of Japan. Now, they reckon they're structures, but if you're actually mining and you're cutting away into things, you're going to leave sharp edges or ridges.
Well, I thought that one that we did, that guy, I found that quite alarming when he says how hot it is down there. But really, it used to have all this water in it flowing through, which would have been a coolant. And that water's not there anymore, and they're mining, and mining causes earthquakes.
Yeah, which destabilises the area. And this is what has been happened. I mean, you get any mine, if you take too much away too quickly without putting something in place, you just destabilise the ground that where you're at. And that's why there's been, in the past, in mines, there's always been cave-ins. You know, when you look at what Centralia, it's one of the things where, like, why didn't they go in there and put out the fire? Was it because they couldn't reach it?
No, and even now, even though they've taken nearly all the houses down, there's no fires coming out of the ground, there's no smoke coming out, the land hasn't imploded because of the fires. So you have to ask yourself, was it all just one dirty, great big lie, like that housing estate with 500 houses in it?
Oh, I didn't know that. That sounds suspicious as well, didn't it?
Well, what it is there still could be chemicals coming up. People did complain about this, but they could have put it out. They always said they couldn't put it out, but it went on for years, and it looks like these people were really, really upset because they were living in it. But what I'm saying is, if you go back to Centralia now, you don't see the land has all fallen in and the fires are coming out like a volcano. Nothing like that's happened. You can walk around on it. The houses aren't there.
Yeah, you mean it's not caved in? There's not been any other catastrophes?
No, there's no big fires.
And there's no fires either.
And they said it's going to burn for another 20 years. And you're like, oh, well, you know, most of us will be dead by then.
Yeah, I mean, how long has it been since they moved out there? Around about the 2000s, was it?
80s?
Oh, the 80s. Well,
I think it was all happening. We'll just say it was happening in the 1980s. Maybe it was the 1990s they went. Yeah, maybe it was the 1990s.
Yeah.
But I was a bit shocked because when we first started looking, you first start off. We've got to finish in a minute, Christian, because we've been going for 14 minutes. But you start off and you hit castles. Oh, they're abandoned. But you're looking at a time frame, and then when you find it abandoned before, you think, well, that's hundreds of years ago. But now you can find it abandoned in 2017 or even the 1990s, the year 2000. They're not abandoned like castles and everything. It's all abandoned. We're living in the most crazy place ever. We're on a demise. That's what I said in our video with Amy. They made the society and now they're destroying it.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at a lot of locations that we've covered, and it's not just people leaving them places, but the places that have been empty where there has been huge mining. It's everywhere, and it's the same scenario. Everything seems to involve mining or quarrying of some degree or another. When you look at Wales,
they're just laughing at us the whole time, Christian, because last week we had it all over our televisions about global warming, and oh dear, now that's the problem now. It's global warming. When actually they know they're the ones doing it. I mean, I said to you before we started making the video, how could our Queen be proud of knowing there's acres and acres and acres abandoned, derelict, falling down? There's nothing to be proud of. In America it's even worse. They've got thousands and thousands of acres of, half of Detroit is rotting away.
Well, one of the factors that I know of that the Queen is practically behind the mining industry, especially when it comes to gold. But I mean, we're supposed to be custodians. Us, the human race, people like you and me, we're supposed to be custodians of this world. And basically, we're being kept busy from 9 to 5, nearly 7 days a week. So
in something that doesn't exist because there is no money really.
No, it's what they give us in exchange for our minerals.
No, they're farming us. I just think we're in an open air prison. They want something from us. So
from the grave to the grave.
Yeah. It's honestly, it feels like the time machine, to be honest.
Yeah.
The big gong happens and everybody walks into the thing. That more or less happens. It's the television that's the going. Christian, we've got to finish this video, but I have found what it is because I don't understand the demise bit and the emptiness and all that. It's sort of not freaked me out, but it makes me go, oh, I don't like the feeling. There's something so, I don't know what. There's obviously something else really big going on, and we're just haven't taken any notice of what's really going on.
It's like people are blind to it. Not just blind, they're blind, often deaf to it.
Yeah, it's only my opinion, but that's what I see.
And then when you begin to establish how many abandoned places just in our country, never mind America and other places.
Don't you find it a bit freaky though, Christian?
Very. I mean, it's disturbing.
All the files left there, like what? Were we not going with them then, or where have all the people gone?
Well, I mean, the lack of duty of care, even in this
It's
country,
the law. You have to take all the documents out. Okay, I watched one today where they did actually, like all the filing bit, all the documents were gone, but in the hospital there were still documents of people.
Yeah, I mean, where does these laws about data protection come in with that when they're just being left
Don't
behind?
you think someone, like, say there's a security team now, right, you've gone bankrupt, it's ours, what, they wouldn't walk around and make sure these things are correct? Do you know, it's like because there is no law. They do what they want.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, especially with that hospital that was left behind all the records.
Well, you haven't seen it because me and Amy have made it, but this guy is showing you a dentist like that.
It's criminal.
Hang on a second, Christian. We've got to finish. Shall we finish our video because we have gone on long enough now?
Yeah, okay.
But it was to make people think.
Well, with any luck, this video might just do it, mightn't it?
Well, crazy stuff, Christian.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Thank you for helping me. We've raised a few issues here. Things that Christian said, things that I've said. So, thanks very much for watching.
Okay, bye-bye.